And I wanted to spend some time talking about the most common problems that take place with pilgrims, not everything that can happen. What could possibly go wrong? One of the biggest issues is sunburn. Probably all of you know that solar radiation comes down. It can hit us as it's coming down, or it can hit us as it bounces back up. It's even on a cloudy day, the UV rays get down through us. And so sunburn can be a real issue for folks. And when you're on a surface that is reflective, like the light-colored sandy surfaces of some of the pathways on the caminos, then we can get reflection as well. So depending on where you are, that has something to do with where you put what body parts you put your sunblock on, right? And making sure that you use plenty of it. A word about sunblock is with, and maybe there's a statistic in here, yeah, with SPF 15, 30, 45. Look at the difference here, right? Maybe you get a little benefit from something between SPF 15 and 30, but I wouldn't suggest spending your money on anything above SPF 30 because you might get 1% more value to it. So it's just something out there to spend your money on another coffee con leche or something like that instead. There's one thing that happens besides sunburn for folks, and sometimes people get what are called ultraviolet. It's like almost an allergic reaction to ultraviolet rays. It's sun bumps. And they're on the exposed areas, often for some reason on the backs of the hands. In fact, a few years ago there was a woman who attended one of the gatherings who wore gloves, and they're gloves that just cover the backs of the hands and kind of a little loop around each finger to hold them in place because she was so allergic to UV rays. So, and that walking the Camino might be one of those times when you're out in the sun enough to realize or to have that experience, and they're itchy, they're bothersome. You can take antihistamines or cortisone. Parts of the Camino, it's maybe more of an issue, and it may be more of an issue for females because it's harder to find a bush to stand behind, right? And the reason I say that is it's not a dehydration. I mean, it's not a hydration issue, but it's a dehydration issue. If it's harder to find a place to pee, then maybe you're going to drink less fluid, right? And a body, I think I've got some notes on this, and I should just let you look at this while I ramble on here. Oh yeah, this one here. The chemists in the crowd will understand this one, I'm sure. And I don't really know what it means. But I thought I'd put it in there because it looks really good. Looks almost like I know what I'm talking about. When somebody's dehydrated, your muscles don't work as well. You are liable to get much more fatigued more easily. Everything, you get injured and you have an open cut, it's liable to become infected more easily. If you get seriously injured, you'll go into shock sooner. It's important for us to stay hydrated. So these are the kind of early things that we might see. And as a pilgrim walking with other people, you might see it in somebody that you're walking with, or somebody who you're walking with. So being aware not only for yourself or for ourselves, but for folks that we're with can be really helpful. It's hard to drink too much fluid on the Camino because we have to carry that water. And I'll mention an issue with too much fluid in a moment. But staying well hydrated is an important issue. To feel comfortable, to be able to sleep better at night, to prevent injuries, because if your muscles aren't working as well, if you're maybe a little lightheaded from time to time, and you just take that one misstep, boy, can that sprain an ankle, can that make you fall over and break a wrist, or any number of kind of problems can take place. So this whole first aid talk might be exemplified by, what if I didn't need to provide any first aid? And it's all about prevention in that respect. So staying well hydrated, drinking plenty of coffee from leche can help to keep you hydrated. Drinking water is really good for you as well, and that's always the good thing. I want to make a mention about what's down here. I'll show you a urine color chart here in just a second, so I'm not going to go there. But if a person has adequate diet, they typically don't need any electrolytes, any fancy kind of things that REI would love to have you carry along. And those are great to have, except you have to carry them, right? And you have to carry everything. So if you can lighten your load by simply having snacks along the way instead of carrying something in your pack for the situation where you think you might need electrolytes, then that makes it easier. And somebody who has an adequate, normal diet typically doesn't need electrolytes.
You can buy Aquarius at the bar instead of a Coke.
And we've been reading the bottom line. Aquarius, which is a Coca-Cola product, you can buy all over Spain. And it's got electrolytes in it, and it's kind of like a Spanish Gatorade, if you will. It tastes really good. Lemon lime flavor. So that's something that you can do as well. Or if a person's not feeling particularly good at the end of the day, a glass of Aquarius, a shower, 45-minute nap with your feet up somewhere will do wonders for it. Okay. So let's move on here. Just an idea about what water does for us. And I don't know, this is as unfuzzy as I could get this slide here. But it does everything from bringing oxygen and nutrients into the cells to helping our body and our cells at the cellular level absorb the nutrients that they need. Muscles, 75% of the muscle tissue is water. How about that, right? Does everything for us. It's good stuff. Now here's the urine chart, and I have just a funny experience that I'm always reminded of when I get to this point. I had a Pilgrim friend a long time ago. I don't even know if I should bring this up. Is that
Oh, now you have to.
Well, here you are. We'll see if it happens. So she came to this talk, and a few years later, I saw her again at a gathering, and she said, Daniel, she said, I don't know if this is good or bad, but every time I sit down to pee, I think about you. Because she paid attention to, okay, is she super hydrated? Right? Is she tight, a little bit dehydrated, or is she significantly dehydrated? Right? Now, there are some medicines that will change the color of your urine, but by and large, the color of our urine helps us to get an idea about whether we're adequately hydrated. And if we're on this side on the left over here, then we're doing just fine. Most of us probably exist somewhere in this range on a regular basis, because they say that most people are somewhat dehydrated to begin with. There are ways to deal with dehydration, of course, and this is one of them. If you carry a couple of cans of Edison's dehydrated water, and the instructions down here are to empty the contents into, I don't know what this means here, but into some other gallons of water. You like maybe one of these per gallon of water, and creates a gallon of water that you can drink. So that's an option. There is a possibility for a person, and I just bring this up, not that it's probably going to happen very often, but once in a while. This is much more common with extreme sports folks who really, really drink tons of water and don't eat very much. So if you eat your way across Spain, you're going to be okay. But if a person gets too much water in their system, that can dilute the electrolytes in your bloodstream, and that can create some real issues. You can see some signs and symptoms up here. Once in a while they can get serious. Once in a while a person can feel really ill from too much water. Right? How would you know if somebody's feeling poorly, somebody you're walking along with, and they're feeling poorly, and you're thinking, I remember going to the gathering and they were talking about like dehydration and then too much water. And how would you know the difference? It's really simple. How much water have you had today? Okay, there's your answer. All right? Yes or no? Have you had a lot? Have you had a little bit? If you think somebody's been, drinking tons and tons and tons of water today and they're feeling poorly, then don't drink any more water for a while. Does that make sense?
A note, aside from the ladies who don't like to pee, being one of those, let me put this not too delicately. Those of us who are on the other side of the maturity spectrum lose our sense of thirst. So if
you mean somebody like me, I'm not going to get as thirsty as you are.
we're probably about 60 years old, but in honesty, if you're not training yourself to drink, if you're just going by, do you feel thirsty? You're probably gonna get dehydrated.
Well, there's that chance, right? So paying attention to your thirst is an important thing. If you're feeling thirsty, definitely drink the water. How many folks who have walked the Camino have experienced tendinitis? Right? Yeah, I've had it a couple times on the Camino, and it can be really painful and debilitating and basically stop the Camino. It's an overuse syndrome. The tendon lives within a sheath, within a container, so to speak, and on a regular basis, that tendon goes back and forth through that sheath any number of times a day. And for many people who don't walk a lot on a regular basis, the tendons, particularly in the legs, go through that sheath periodically when we get up in the morning and we go downstairs and have a cup of coffee and then all the things we do during the day. But how many steps do we take as we're walking the Camino day after day after day after day? And it's this overuse process which creates some inflammation within the tendon sheath. The tendon swells, we continue walking, there's more inflammation, more irritation, it swells. So the real absolute cure for tendinitis is just don't do it, which is hard to tell a pilgrim who wants to continue walking across Spain. All right? Redness, inflammation at the site of where that tendon happens to be is real common. The legs, down in the ankles. If, when you're walking along, it makes it worse, and when you stop and rest and have a café con leche, it's probably tendinitis. Because when you're just sitting there having your café con leche, you're not putting those tendons through that process. Does that make sense to y'all? Mm-hmm. What can we do about it in the meantime? Stretching can help, some massage can help, staying hydrated can help. And one of the things that I've discovered that makes common sense is if you're not in a hurry and you're not trying to keep up with somebody who's taller than you, you're probably going to do better. Taking shorter steps. I had really serious tendinitis on one Camino, and I put this into practice, and I literally just walked almost 1 foot in front of the other instead of striding out. And it made all the difference in the world. Because as those feet and your ankles and your calves move, if you take a short step, they're moving like this. You take a longer step, they're going through a much bigger distance in terms of tendon stretch. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So that can be something that can help out a lot, all right? Raising that area when you're at the end of the day or when you're taking a break, using a bag of peas or whatever they might have in the freezer, ice cream, in the albergue at night as sort of an ice pack that can help too, make people feel more comfortable. Anti-inflammatories can help as well. All right, but like it says here, rest is the cure. If it's Achilles tendinitis, and there's a picture here I know coming up, so I might as well get to that one. There we are. If it's Achilles tendinitis, sometimes that's where shortening the steps can really make a big difference. And sometimes you can take material like multiple layers of cardboard, it's going to compress down, but material and put under the heel inside your boot or your shoe, and that raises the heel up a little bit, which will limit the stretching distance of the Achilles tendon as well. But you kind of have to, if you use cardboard, you have to put a number of layers and kind of keep adding into it because it gets compressed down. If you had a black Ensa-like type pad or any kind of foamy sleeping pad, you could cut a little piece out of that and use that as a heel lift as well.
How do you feel about topically applying the ibuprofen cream that you can buy in Spanish pharmacies?
Voltaren is a wonderful stuff. Yeah, I think it's just great stuff.
If you don't also take the pill at the same time.
Pardon me?
Don't combine topical NSAID and oral NSAID, or overdose and
Repeat what you said.
Becky, who's a physician, says don't take the topical steroid or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory like Voltaren, and don't take the topical and the oral at the same time because we want to avoid getting overdose overdose systems.
So we're
One or the other. Thank you.
I got it.
Yeah. Yes.
And can you speak to drinking wine with these NSAIDs too?
You better answer that question. Because I'm gonna say if it's red wine, it's okay.
It's dose dependent, and it depends how healthy your kidney is, it depends how consistently the NSAIDs are in your liver. When I have patients that are on NSAIDs constantly, I check their liver after they've been on it for 6 months. So one day of NSAIDs and wine at night isn't enough to kill your liver if you've got a healthy liver.
Okay.
But if you're out there for 6 months, you know, and so somewhere in between is the balance.
So that's what I'm wondering, like if I'm taking it every night for a month on the Camino, some NSAIDs, I just want to be sure I can have some wine. So I was thinking I'd have to do one or the
If you
other.
were 20 years old, I'd say no problem.
Okay.
At your age, check with your doctor
Yeah,
before you
okay,
go and
okay.
see where your liver is and your kidneys. It's
Okay.
actually your kidneys is the issue.
Yeah, and your stomach's gonna rip up before.
Okay, kids. We have a number of medically involved individuals, I think, in here, so we'll keep moving here. Maybe we'll get some other good information. So I had a dermatologist in a course one time who explained to us a good likelihood as to why you never got blisters. Some people are genetically more prone to blistering than others because of the way the layers of our tissue are held together. There are some things that also contribute to blistering, and I'll just put up this picture for a moment. You know, you're glad you didn't come before lunch, okay? And let you cogitate on this, all of this information here. I'll only tell you this little story. So the connective tissue between the various layers of our skin, for some of us, is tighter than others. And if it's tighter, then you're less likely to get blisters. Blisters is a function of this shear force moving back and forth of these tissue layers, and heat and moisture. So when we talk about prevention, you want to make sure you buy your boots so that they're big enough. The best approach is, if you don't have already a pair of boots or shoes that you're going to wear, pack your pack, walk around with it for a while, like do a training walk, and then wearing your pack at the end of your training walk that day, go into the place where you're going to buy your boots, and go into a place where there are people who know about boots. REI, for example, or MEI if you're back up on the East Coast or up in Canada. Organizations, you know, stores that, well, you're not going to have somebody who, let me scan the crowd here because I don't want to offend anybody. You're not going to have someone who's like part-time high school, high schooler with a part-time job saying, dude, those look like great boots. They're awesome, you should buy them. Right? Somebody who knows how to fit boots to you. Buy them at the end of the day when your feet are hotter and more swollen, because that's what happens at the end of the day. So the feet are going to be more like Camino feet. And then buy them big enough so that you're not going to get that compression and that friction process, that shear force taking place. This is a list of a lot of different ideas that people have. And so prevention is one piece. And then some of these can also be prevention. And I look at, again, I don't want to offend anybody, but I look at blister issues as being somewhat like religion, in that everybody has what is theirs, and it works for them. And mine might not work for you, and yours might not work for me. And it's very similar to these ideas about, boy, I said the wrong thing. There we go. It's very similar to this. You know, for some people, cold water soaks at the end of the day work great. For me, I think they work great. And in the middle of the day, for a break, take my boots and my socks off, let my socks air out and dry out, let my feet air out and dry out, let my boots air out and dry out. So it limits the swelling, limits the moisture, limits the heat, those kind of things. Changing socks every couple hours is great. 2 pairs of socks. Some people swear by the toe socks, etc. Gaiters are good if you're comfortable wearing gaiters. They're the little pieces that come from your boots up somewhere up your calf. And what that does is it helps keep the little tiny pieces of sand and such from getting into the back of your boot and into your sock and rubbing and creating a hot spot. So these are some ideas here, all right? let's go on here and, let's go back up here and talk a little bit about the treatment process. Again, different types of treatment process. If you've been in Spain, you're probably familiar with Compeed. It's a type of material. It's a little bit of padding. It absorbs fluid, so the padding can swell a little bit. Sticks really well to your skin. You put it over a hot spot before a blister develops, and it helps to provide some protection. One thing about Compeed is if you're the kind of person like I am, where you're like, well, okay, it just looks like a Band-Aid, so I'm going to put it on like a Band-Aid. The actual instructions in real small print say you have to rub it between your hands to create some friction to warm it up, to activate the adhesive so it really sticks well to your skin. And then it'll stick well for multiple days through showers and walking through rivers and that sort of thing. How much time we have? Okay. So moleskin's great. I've got a picture here of this process. There's a question, many folks in Europe, can I answer questions at the end or comments at the end?
I'm sorry, you were.
Is that okay? This one, I won't leave this up very long either. Some folks swear by piercing a blister with a needle and having a thread come through on either end. All right? And again, if it's your religion, that's great. And if it works for you and you don't get infected, then that's wonderful. But the concern is that the moisture, the idea is the moisture in a blister will leak out along the thread line. The concern is that bacteria can leak in or wick themselves in along that same moisture line. So the school I work for, which in our wilderness medicine program, we don't teach that. What we recommend instead, if you have a blister that's growing, we typically say if it's the size of a nickel or so and it's not growing, just leave it and your body's going to reabsorb the fluid and everything's going to be just fine. But if it's growing, it's one of those common sense things. If you have a blister and it's getting bigger, then it's getting bigger. And you probably should do something about it, otherwise it's going to continue to get bigger. And so our recommendation for this one is, number one, soap and water wash the area really, really well. And then take a very sharp, sterile blade and make a nice happy face slice across the bottom of it, squeegee all the fluid out, and then cover the blistered area to prevent any further growth from taking place, to prevent it from getting bigger again. And how you might cover it would be, for example, using moleskin in a circle so that the blister's in the center. It might look like something like this. All right. If I was, and again, I don't remember where I got this picture, but if I was going to do this for someone, this would be the blistered area. A layer or two of moleskin creates a little space, so this isn't going to rub on the inside of the boot. But I would take and make it with a pair of scissors, make a circle here, or kind of round out the corners because they'll stick better to your skin. The corners with socks and such tend to peel up. It's just a little one of those things that helps. So that's something we can do for folks. All right. And again, if you haven't seen it yet, this is what the packages of Compeed look like, and you'll see them in every pharmacy along the way. Band-Aid company makes something basically very similar that they market here, and this is a picture of one of the packages you can buy in, CVS or Rite Aid or whatever the pharmacy is where you live. And you can take them with you. So this is what it looks like on somebody's skin. And when I was reviewing these pictures, I was looking at it thinking, how did that person get a blister on what looks like their calf? But anyway, that's what it looks like. Maybe some of you will recognize the photograph from your own experience. A few things about bed bugs. And I'll just come up with a list here. Look at that cute little thing. Now, bed bugs in the urban world like to live in little isolated places. If it was this building here, they might live in the cracks between the wood and the wall, in the cracks between the wood and the floor, actually maybe in the rugs themselves, that kind of thing. They like to live in little hidden spots. And they come out, this is the kind of albergue you don't want to stay in, all right, with bed bugs that look like this on the mattress. they come out, and I don't know who's done the study on this. Commonly, they say between about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why that is. Maybe we're in a deeper sleep. And maybe that's just when people notice them more. But that's what the literature seems to say. Often the bedbug bites are in clusters, like you can see on this person's neck here, or something like this one here. All right. If it's just a single bite, maybe it's a bed bug, maybe it's not, but these kind of clusters are really common. Where a bed bug will, and what they do is they will insert a little bit of fluid into us to numb us up so we don't know that they're there. And then also a little material to keep the blood that they're drinking from coagulating. And it's those two pieces of, those two types of fluid which people react to. And some people have really not much reaction at all, and you might have a few bites, and then it goes away by your first coffee in the morning. And there might be other people who react really, really strongly to this. So it's more of a reaction to the components of what's in the material that they're putting into us so that they can have this blood meal, which is part of the egg cycle for bed bugs. Bed bugs don't carry disease. They don't live on people. There we go. They would just as soon stay with the rest of the colony rather than go on to the next town. And when we find them coming with us to the next town, it's probably because we got up early, we packed our sleeping bag, we were wearing clothes while we were asleep, and then we got on, put our boots on, and kept on walking. So the bed bugs got trapped with us instead. They're not particularly dangerous to us unless we scratch, and that becomes infected, or unless we have a real serious reaction to, sort of a nuisance kind of reaction to the materials that they put into us so they can have the blood meal. Treatment is time, it'll go away. We can use antihistamines, we can use hydrocortisone cream to deal with the itching, and that's pretty much it, all right? The thing that some people want to know, well, what can I do to prevent? To me, this was a really interesting thing to come across. You can use essential oils like oregano and thyme and lemongrass and clove oil. Lavender seems to be really popular in France. Here's the key piece, though. It took about 70,000 times more of the most effective compound to kill a bed bug than a controlled synthetic insecticide. So insecticides will kill bed bugs a whole lot easier than 70,000 times more of the clove. That's a lot of clove oil to carry around. Let's go down here. There's the other thing too that I want you to, I just kind of want to throw this idea out here to you. There are a lot of remedies recommended for dealing with or preventing bed bugs. And I would caution you to perhaps be somewhat skeptical about a remedy if it's found on the same page in a magazine that suggests you can use peanut butter to diagnose Alzheimer's. I don't know, maybe it's just something about Alzheimer's diagnosis that I don't know about. Yeah, just be cautious about that, okay? So don't worry about bed bugs, okay? What can you do if you happen to have bed bugs? Heat is what kills them. Everybody says, I'm going to wash my clothes, which is always a good idea on the Camino. But it's the heat of the water and it's the heat of the commercial dryer that really kills the bed bugs and their eggs. If you don't have, remember how many of you went to Celeste's program last night? The black bag, right? That's what it's for. If you don't have the capacity, the chance to put stuff in a dryer, then take out that black bag, put everything in the black bag, leave it in the sun, seal it up really well. Leave it in the sun for a few hours, and hopefully that will get it up between this 120 to 140 degree process. You could also freeze everything, but you're not going to find a freezer. When you come home, perhaps, then you want to put things in a freezer for a few days or a few weeks, just to make sure you kill any bed bugs or any bites, any eggs that might be in there. But it's heat that kills the bed bugs. I put a timer on my, I think I've got about 3 minutes until the timer goes off. But that's basically what I have to say, except for this one here, keep calm and walk on, and buen camino. If anybody has questions, I would be happy to answer.
Can you give some clarifications on when and when not to use Compeed?
If a person already has it, Compeed is best used on a hot spot.
Not on a blister, correct?
On a blister, it'll cover the area, but when you take it off, it has really strong adhesive, and you're liable to rip off whatever skin is beginning to heal underneath it. So it's best not to use it then. That prevention would be by far the best approach. Yeah.
Do you recommend, if you've had Compeed on for 2 or 3 days, should you take it off to let the area air out, or just leave it on for?
I would leave it on and just let the tissue underneath heal it as well as possible, or heal as well as possible. Yeah.
If you just put the Compeed on when you have friction spots before you get the blister, can you use it preventively? Or?
Oh yeah, you can put it on. I always get blisters in this little knob of my heel or something, or that outside of my little toe. You can put it on before anything shows up. Sure.
Comment about some of the albergues, like when I was in Salamanca running an albergue there, people were insulted when I would have let them take their backpacks and clothing upstairs to the rooms. Everybody was issued a bag to put their materials in, so you can expect that every now and then. Leave everything downstairs, you just take upstairs what you're going to sleep in. That's it.
I volunteered in the same place,
Yeah.
told people the same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're walking along and they tell you, you can't put your pack on the bed, you can't take it into the dormitorio, you have to leave it here, it's why. Yeah. Yes?
May I ask a clarifying question on those here?
Mhm.
Are you covering the blister or surrounding it?
Surrounding it. Think of a jelly donut, or a donut of some kind. Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Along those lines, so the part that's exposed after you put the muscular skin on, can you put like a Band-Aid or something over that to protect the
Put Band-Aid over it. There's some material called second skin, which is a little blue gel that comes in a kind of a square like this. You can get a little container of several of these. Cut a circle so that you have a little round piece of blue gel that goes on the blister, and then put a circle of moleskin around the outside of that. If you want to really do it up big, if you think about the picture that was up here,
Right.
take some athletic tape and tape from ankle, if it's on the heel, tape from ankle bone all the way around over the moleskin to the other ankle bone in a nice wide swath, and that'll hold the moleskin on better. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can use the tape over the top of it. And if you don't have that tape, you could just
But
leave the
second
moleskin
skin,
the way
that's
it
a,
is.
okay, thanks.
Question on, because I was told to get a silk liner, because bed bugs don't really go with the silk. So I got a bed liner that's silk, is that true?
Bed bugs are not gonna crawl through the silk, but they're gonna notice that maybe there's an entrance. But sure, silk liner is liable to help keep them away from you, at least for most of you, sure.
In terms of sunburn, the clothing that's being put on the market now that is supposed to prevent sunburn, mostly whatever, do you know about that?
It is effective, yes, it is effective, yes, for multiple washes. Don?
How much water should a pilgrim be drinking every day? Sort of a minimum level. You have 5 glasses, 8 glasses. I know there's no science behind this, but what is your
So when that question comes up in the classes that I teach, we say a couple of things. One is at least a liter a day, right? And that's not that much, that's a little more than a quart. Probably more like between 2 and 3 liters a day. But drink to your level of thirst, right? If you're getting thirsty, then you need to start drinking. Yeah. When you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated.
Is there a product that you can use to spray your pack and sleeping bag, whatever? To prevent?
Permethrin perhaps is the best product to help to repel almost any kind of insect. Yeah. Shin splints, prevention of shin splints. And again, stretching in the morning can help, and then shorter steps, I think, can help with that. Yes?
I have a strong emotional reaction to bed bugs. How commonly is that encountered along the Camino, actually?
Well, you know, it depends on who you talk to, because some people seem to find them wherever they go, and some people don't seem to find them very often. It depends to some degree on which albergue you end up staying in, at what time of year, and some luck. There are albergues which will stay, or at the first hint of a bed bug, they'll shut down. They'll fumigate the place, they'll scrub everything, and you're more, you know, you're
So if you don't want to encounter the issue, what types of albergues would you aim at?
Boy, that's difficult, because you'll find bed bugs in five-star hotels as well.
There are really good videos online for how to check your bed for bed bugs. I would just like to point that out.
Thank you. And that's the best, probably the best thing, is to just check for them.
I've
in
obsessively
advance.
done with you right here.
Can I make another comment about bed bugs?
I've obsessively researched
Yes.
bed bugs.
Yeah, Becky, please.
Another comment about bed bugs. The studies show that 80% of humans don't react noticeably to bed bugs. So 4 out of 5 of us are never gonna have problems. It's only 1 in 5 that have any reaction at all, and it's a small percentage of those get the really bad reactions. So it makes it very hard to figure out where the bed bugs are, because if there's bed bugs in this albergue, but everybody who stayed in that albergue is a non-reactor. Yeah, so it's, you know, just to make things a little bit more complicated,
It does, and
but more reassuring.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You know, if we're gonna worry about insects, we should worry about mosquitoes. Because we can get all sorts of really serious diseases from mosquitoes. And they don't seem to come up. I just think we tend to get freaked out by bed bugs. Yes?
I've read and listened to blogs that people rub Vaseline on their feet, did the double socking or whatever, and then one person from Germany actually was buying a raw type of wool. When they felt the hot spot starting on their feet, they would just immediately stop to change their socks, and then they would put this kind of raw wool that looks to me like thin cotton balls, but it's bigger than that. You just pull these out, and you kind of put it there. Is that truly a good trick?
Well, I guess it worked for that person.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the lanolin in the wool that provides some lubricant. This is the thing about blisters particularly. And it's one of those things, every time I give a talk like this, there's somebody, it hasn't happened yet, but maybe you're thinking about it. But you know, there's somebody who says, this is what you have to do, right? It's like, yeah, that works for them and that's great. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work the same for somebody else. So it may work really well, and maybe it is the lanolin. I've never tried it, but it's, you know, anything, if there's a problem like that, somebody says try it, then why not?
That's something we need to be concerned with there.
I wouldn't be concerned about it, no, no. So much that it does rain on the plane in Spain, just like the song says, but there's not a tremendous amount of, you're not likely to come in contact with an area, be in an area where there's a huge amount of standing water all the time. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Any questions on COVID?
So how do you, what's the first aid for COVID, right? Get yourself a place to be all by yourself. And hopefully by now everybody knows what COVID symptoms and signs are. The approach at this point in Spain is still developing, and you're liable to find yourself, if you're going over to walking anywhere on the Camino, masks are going to be highly recommended, if not required, probably for a while longer. You're gonna find yourself really being encouraged to maintain those distances. The albergues are gonna have less in terms of capacity because of distancing. You might have expected to be able to be in some albergues where there's gonna be communal meals. Maybe that's not gonna be happening. You may not have access to the kitchen, or you might have access to the kitchen in the albergue. Like in the US here, the regulations vary from region to region, from province to province, from locality to locality. It's all in flux right now. Thanks.
Can I comment, having been
Yes.
there just a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
It also varies from the municipals versus the privates. The municipals are under much stricter regulations in terms of masking and separation, and the privates are looser, a lot looser. Communal meals, I found in October, are still happening, but they're not letting pilgrims into very many kitchens at all. I saw 3 open kitchens on the entire Francés. People were super good about putting a mask on as soon as they go into a building. You go into a store, you go order your café con leche, everybody puts their mask on. But so much of the Camino, we can sit outside with our café con leches and our meals, that there wasn't a lot of COVID. I made it all the way across the Francés, and to my knowledge, there were no pilgrims diagnosed with COVID in an albergue during the 6 weeks that I was there.
That's huge. That's huge.
No, yeah, it was huge. A number of people tested themselves or went in. I got a cough and I went in and I got tested just to see if I had COVID. And there were people that were getting coughs, but it wasn't COVID. It was just the normal, kind of the Camino bronchitis that was always happening. But to my knowledge, this fall, there was nobody on the Francés that got sick with COVID in an albergue.
One other thing maybe I'll mention in terms of the process, walking along the Camino, and sometimes there's this run of gastrointestinal distress, let's call it, that happens. And sometimes people will say, I think I got it in that albergue, I think I got it from there. What's the best way to prevent any GI problems? Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Right? Yeah, just wash your hands a lot, and that will go a long ways towards keeping yourself and everybody else healthier and able to continue to walk.
Can I just put a couple of ibuprofen, a couple of things in there, or do I need to have some kind of label?
As long as, I'm going to suggest as long as you know exactly what they are, that's fine. I carry, now if you want to take on your phone a picture of the standard information that comes with each one of those, that's super valuable, right? In terms of crossing borders, going through customs and things, I carry a first aid kit with a Ziploc baggie with a variety of different medicines in it. Nobody's ever even looked at it, let alone asked me about it. We're at 2:25, and we're supposed to go till 2:20. So I want to